What's up, everyone? This is your daily dose of mental health, and in this video I'm going to be discussing ways I help my post-addiction in regards to increasing my dopamine levels. As I stated in a couple videos back, I was prescribed a very low dose of amphetamine salts, Adderall, for my ADD diagnosis I got a year and a half ago, which I decided to try the medication because I was having some focusing issues, as well as at night I was still using like a dose of kratom or whatnot. And I found that at first the Adderall helped at a low dose, but the doctor was aware of my past issues in regards to the tramadol, but he thought this was the best fit because he thought maybe I was supplementing because, originally when I got addicted, it's because he thought I might have had an attention deficit disorder. So I decided to give it a try. I'm pro medication. I am pro natural supplements. Before I go any further, if you could like and subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. So let's get this video started. So as I was saying earlier, yeah, I was prescribed a low dose, and at first it was going all right, of Adderall. It was going fine, actually, and I'm not totally still opposed to it. For people who have really bad ADD or ADHD, or there's also it's like there's another subcategory of a hyper-focus disorder, because for adults now, when I was talking to my psychiatrist last, he was saying that it's he was saying for adults, the ADHD diagnosis is actually gone. They diagnosed that up to 18 or 21, I forgot. But essentially, as an adult, they automatically go to the ADD diagnosis only. But he said what he thought too was a lot of why he felt like I had ADD was because I do tend to hyperfocus, but there was no OCD aspect to it or anything. But he thought that could have been part of why I would hyperfocus on something, which would zone me into the point of where I wasn't actually getting other things done. So I'd focus in on something and I wasn't getting anything done. And he thought, and keep in mind this was post the tramadol withdrawal. And I have told my psychiatrist about the kratom use as well. He knows about this, which he doesn't really say, which I'm not going to go into really details on it. All I'll say is he knows about it, and he's not too mad about it or anything. But back to what I was discussing though. Essentially, what I noticed when I started taking it was it was working and whatnot. I was getting stuff done, but over time, it was either up the dose. It was either up the dose of the Adderall, or it was either up it or essentially cut it off. And that's kind of what I was discussing with him. And he said, well, look, to the average dose is typically 20 milligrams twice a day. And I was like, look, I can't be doing that. And he agreed with that. So I had my appointment, and this is, keep in mind, 3-ish months back or whatnot. And I just decided, because what it was doing to me was I felt like it was helping, but I didn't want to up the dose because then I was worried about getting addicted to it, or having another addiction issue like in my past. Because I work long days in hospitals and whatnot, which it did help. It really did help me get stuff done and whatnot. So what I started to notice as I continued taking it though, at just that 10, is I wasn't getting that effect, and I felt like the days I was getting my stuff done, but I just felt like emotions were starting to break, if that makes sense. My emotions in a way of breaking. What I mean by that is, I feel like I wasn't really I felt like I wasn't making any connections with people. I was just going through the day. I was doing my job, obviously, but I felt like that emotional response was gone, even to family, friends, loved ones, things like that. So that's when I just decided to cut it cold turkey. Now I was taking kratom as well at the time. Keep in mind, I still do take kratom, which it was not for coming down or whatnot from the Adderall or anything. It was just I've been taking that because that really helped with my tramadol and my pain problem I have. Or I would probably still be on that. I would probably still be on that as well, which I do not take, the tramadol. So I quit cold turkey, but before I did that, though, I did start looking at some dopamine, because at the end of the day, if it was an ADD problem, I wanted to start looking into some dopamine, like some dopamine boosters. And one interesting thing, I noticed when I was coming down from the Adderall as well, I felt more personable, surprisingly. So when I would take it, I was like zoned in, didn't really care, no emotion, but it was helping me, but it wasn't. Socially, it was really weird it was just with all COVID and everything, you couldn't really go out, but I just felt like I wasn't having strong relationships with people. So I decided if I was going to quit, okay, am I going to have the same problems again where I can't really focus? So I decided to kind of take matters in my own hands, and I take Kratom, which helps. But also, I did decide to take some dopamine supplements. And for anyone who knows, I've known about this, but it's not discussed a lot from school. One thing we have to realize is we technically, scientists label our second brain as our gut. We have a lot of gut bacteria. So probiotics are essentially living microorganisms that are living in our digestive tract, and we have hundreds of different types. And it's very easy to not be getting it's really easy to not have enough of those microorganisms. You get some of them through yogurts and whatnot, but if you don't have good gut bacteria, it can lead to various health problems. In particular, mood disorders, which that can cover a vast spectrum of different things. Also, while there is harmful gut bacteria out there, there are harmful ones, but they do have probiotics they sell over the counter that can actually increase your dopamine production, which may actually boost your mood as well. So I decided to just buy some. I'm not going to leave the camera right now, but it's just like, I think it was by Nature Valley. I've got probiotics I started taking while I got off the med, which it was very easy this time. As I said, I just kind of didn't want to deal with that. It helped me for a little bit, but I could tell it was going to start going in the wrong direction. But this is where I'm telling you, I still, to this day, even though I had a problem in my past with having a drug addiction, I'm still not opposed to people who, just because they had a drug addiction, because they were addressing that underlying problem like my ADD, I don't see an issue. If you feel like there's something that could help you, why not try it? That's why I tried the Adderall or amphetamine salts. And I do believe in herbs as well. Both of them have a place for people. There's not one or other that it shouldn't be an end all for just picking one or the other. Like it should not just be pharmaceuticals only or herbs only. I mean, you can go either way, which is fine, but it should, in my opinion, they should be promoted the same way. And that's a whole nother video I might discuss later, which probably YouTube would take down. But back to the probiotics. So I started taking it, and I just took the dose. I just took it was like a cap in the morning, in the afternoon. And it's just probiotics. It's like a spectrum of probiotics. And I will tell you, and I didn't know at first if it was the placebo, I did notice my mood in general and my focus. It wasn't like I was like zoned in, but I noticed I had more motivation to get more stuff done. On top of working. Now, there is one thing I do want to say to anyone out there before I go on about if you're trying to take, for example, probiotics, you should always discuss it with your doctor, obviously. And there was one study in people who have IBS found that those who received probiotics had a reduction in depressive symptoms compared to those who received a placebo. So, and I found that interesting, and because there are a lot of people who have irritable bowel syndrome, and a lot of people with that their moods can be down. They are a lot more self-conscious some of the time. They can be more irritable, and I was, come to think that could have to do with their gut bacteria as well, not having enough and not being able to digest it. And through taking these, it actually helped really rebalance their digestive system. And I'm not saying it didn't cure their IBS, but it helped with their mood. Because for me, at least, when it came to drug addiction and whatnot, my biggest thing actually was never really a physical withdrawals I went through. And this is the same with the Adderall as well. It was always the mental. And this time I can truthfully say I didn't have any. Now I am continuing to take kratom, obviously, and that could be something that helps. But the probiotics have made a big difference in energy levels as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind about irritable bowel syndrome. So that's one thing I did to help with the dopamine naturally. Because even without it, when I wasn't taking the medication and I had quit the tramadol before it, I'd always felt like I'd had some sort of dopamine issue. I've had blood work done. I don't have any testosterone issues or anything. I actually am fine across the board. But yeah, as I said, I came across a video about gut bacteria, and I knew a little bit about it, but the more research I did, the more intrigued I was, which it has been helping. And I'm still taking it to this day. Now, another substance I did start taking, which actually I've started taking, I haven't noticed a difference, but I have started taking some turmeric. And it's also supposed to have some antidepressant effects as well as increase your dopamine. For example, there was like one study, it was a controlled study that found that taking 1 gram of turmeric, it had very similar effects to something like of taking a Prozac. And it really, and what it did was it really helped improve mood in people who had major depressive disorder. So I find that interesting if you're replacing a natural substance from a pharmaceutical like Prozac, because Prozac's a strong antidepressant. That's another thing to keep in mind. And once again, I can't give medical advice. You should talk to your doctor about it, but I found that interesting as well. And I don't really have depression, but I still, there, in general, I would just rather have a better mood, and I've been doing that, and maybe I have been noticing it different. I've been getting more stuff done, but I haven't noticed any negatives, is what I'm trying to say as well. And lastly, I have been taking some magnesium. It plays a vital role in keeping your body, and in particular, which I knew about but not near as much about, your mind healthy. It also can really, it also has some antidepressant qualities. They are not fully understood though, but there is growing evidence that magnesium deficiency could contribute to decreased dopamine levels and an increased risk of depression. So my whole point of listing some of these is there are naturals out there, natural substances that have had studies, and this isn't just me talking, there are studies in regards to these talking about how they have truthfully helped with things like depression. So magnesium is the last substance I want to talk about, which I have noticed a big difference in. Now there are some others I wrote down. Vitamin D, I take that and I get that in my daily supplement as it is. Oh, and fish oil. Fish oil, we do have a family history of having cardiovascular disease. I've got a grandpa who had a heart attack. However, he never really went to the doctor. He was a farmer. But his grandpa had one as well, and he had an arrhythmia. And fish oil has been shown just to be great for your circulation. But it also, the reason why I bring it up, it also has been shown to help and work somewhat like an antidepressant. And it doesn't increase. It can help if you have normal dopamine levels. I think it would really just help with your circulation. But if you do have low dopamine levels, especially when you're in recovery, getting off of drugs or whatnot in general, it can help regulate your dopamine, and it can help regulate it in regards to not spiking it, but when you are producing it, regulating it to a point of where it'll be more manageable. And one example would be, there was one rat study that observed that they gave rats a fish oil enriched diet, which increased their dopamine levels in the frontal cortex in the brain by 40% and enhance the dopamine binding capabilities by 42. That's actually a huge difference. Fish oil, I am currently not. I was taking for a while, but I haven't been taking recently. But that was another supplement I really quickly wanted to cover. But yeah, that'll cover this real quick. Oh, and surprisingly, caffeine. Caffeine will actually, for a short amount of time, increase your dopamine levels. You know, and in particular, having some coffee or whatnot, just like a cup of coffee, not these energy drinks and whatnot, like a good cup of coffee, minimizing the sugar, that it can be, that has been shown to be really good as well for your for dopamine levels. However, you know, if you're continuing to take caffeine, you can develop a tolerance, which could once again lead to having an addiction to that or dependency. So you really just need to be really cautious of how much you're consuming. No more than 1 to 2 cups a day is what typically I would do. But outside of that, that'll cover this video. I just kind of wanted to go into a little bit more of my experience, and this was recently with the Adderall and natural ways for especially somebody with ADHD or ADD, natural alternatives to it instead of going to other pharmaceuticals to help treat it, which I have noticed a difference. So yeah, that's this video. Everyone have a great weekend. This is your daily dose of mental health, and let's get after it. Have a great weekend, and let's be nice to each other. Peace and love.